Well, we are live. We gave you a sneak preview of who was here. It wasn't my mistake. We did it on purpose. And yeah, with me today, and welcome everyone to the Demystifying Post Production show, the regular Monday show. I have with me a very good friend and colleague called Joe Herman. You may have seen him in a few other Demystifying Post Production series as well. Joe, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Thanasis, I'm good. Nice to see you again, as always.
As always.
And it's good to be here.
Nice, nice. Well, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm just going to read out his bio because my description of Joe is quite different. That he's an extremely intelligent, extremely good cinema 4D artist and instructor. He's a great guy to be around, and I haven't seen him for a long time. I haven't traveled to New York, and I have to.
Yeah,
So that's
we
my.
had a nice time last time you were in New York. Actually,
Always have a nice time with you, Joe.
yeah,
Always.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
looking forward to.
yeah. Had some ramen.
Yes, we did. So, Joe Herman attained a bachelor's of fine arts at the School of Visual Arts and went on to establish himself as an animator, motion designer, filmmaker, and artist in New York, where he has worked for some of the leading studios of the city. His work has appeared in nationally broadcast commercials, TV programs, documentaries, and independent film. When he's not creating images and animations, Joe shares his knowledge about 3D animation, one thing he's going to do today, and Cinema 4D, and has traveled widely to lecture and teach on the subject. You can reach Joe on Instagram and Twitter, right? X.
Yes, X, right.
Twixer, with the handle at Joe Herman Artist, JoeHermanArtist. And be sure to check out his YouTube channel. I don't know if I made a banner of that. Maybe I'll put it up later on. Joe Herman, anyhow. And I am Athanasios Prousantis, also known as Noseman. And you can find me on Twitter at NosemanGR. And I do respond to questions. So let's go through the housekeeping for a second. I'm going to put my screen up and hide our beautiful faces here and just go through my list of things to say. Go to the Maxon events page, and I need to bring up, I'm doing the production, by the way, today. So I'm going to mess things up. So maxon.net events will take you to this page here. And as you can see, we have today's show, Maxon Color. We have the digital animation tour, design animation tour, which the next one is September the 8th in Chicago. Fantastic. So I think that you can visit, oh my God, Half Res. There you go. I had a little brain lag there. You can visit Half Res. So make sure you go there and have some fun. Then next week we have our second session. We're going to go throughout all Mondays of September doing the similarly themed show. And then Camp Mograph, go to Camp Mograph and enjoy some outside life without any technology and more other things. Go to this page here and check out all the events. Don't forget to visit the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, which features all the amazing shows we have, and add yourselves to the nearly 43,000 subscribers. We're a great bunch over there. So Maxon Training Team YouTube, there you go. Just a reminder. And of course, the Maxon YouTube channel that has more stuff where you can go, presentations and all that fine stuff that Maxon does. We also, within our family, have ZBrush. So go to the Pixelogic ZBrush YouTube channel and watch some amazing presentations relating to the software. Go to this amazing YouTube channel. Oops. Shameless plug. Athanasios Prousantis. I have a YouTube channel, and as you can see, I post very regularly, every 6 months to a year to maybe 2 years. So maybe you find something interesting there. I haven't done things for a long time. Now, in today's session, before we go to today's session, I have one more thing to talk about. You can always go to cineversity.maxon.net. So cineversity.maxon.net, that is the address, and check out the Cineversity video portal where we create amazing tutorials and point to other interesting tutorials outside of Maxon. You can even go to the old Cineversity. Where is the old? There it is. And check out thousands of tutorials that have been done over the years and still are very much relevant. Then, what you can do if you decide to become a certified pro user or a certified trainer, go to this address, maxon.net/certification, and check out all the information. And what else do we have here? And of course, today's little present. If you go to this link, Maxon and all that, just take a snapshot of that, or I can actually go here, copy this, and put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. Boom. There you go. Oh, and someone is on the background pasting stuff. I love that. So you can go there and you can use this little password here, and you can get one t-shirt free. You only pay for shipping and wrapping, as I call it. And let's go now to today's little theme. So recently we published Joe's latest series, Motion Capture Workflows in Cinema 4D. And I have to say, everyone knows what an absolute genius I am. And yet, and I have Joe and speed dial, and yet I learned a few very interesting things in this series. So if you are interested in motion capture retargeting techniques from Mixamo or your own Rococo suit or anything else you may have, or even Cascadeur, we're going to talk about Cascadeur today, go watch this series because it's packed with information and tips from the beginning all the way to the end to do all sorts of fancy stuff. Go check it out. I'm not going to spend more time on this. It's just amazingly cool. So let me remove my screen from here. Let me turn off that banner, which I can't find now. I have to go to banners. And again, this is what happens when I have to multitask. So I think at this point, we're going to start. I forgot to say this. If you do have any questions and you post them in the chat, preface them with capitalized question so that we can, while I'm doing my multitasking, I want to be able to see the questions easily. I've got my chats open over there on my one of my 5 monitors here, and we will try to respond. Please try and keep them within the character mocap retargeting area of knowledge so we can focus. Excellent. So I'm going to pass the screen over to Joe. You can close down your StreamYard screen and show your Cinema 4D. And Joe is going to start showing us some stuff, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Before I begin, thanks a lot, Thanasis, for the kind and words. And I, too, have picked up a multiple amount of salient tips from watching your videos. I want to say hi to everybody. I see we have a nice international crowd as usual. Hey, Wes, shout out to Wes. Colombia, I always like to. Denmark, that's always interesting. And the Philippines, wow, I haven't seen that one before. Yep. But so welcome, everybody. And I guess, can you see my screen now?
They can see it now.
Okay, great. So, as Thanasis mentioned, we just recorded a Cineversity series on cinema as motion capture workflows in Cinema 4D. And this is a sort of a supplement to that. We're going to get into a bunch of stuff that wasn't talked about in this series, but if you want to, but you should definitely recommend watching this series as a nice thing to do. So anyway, we're going to start out today with a basic generic character and rig, which is sort of based on one of the things in the asset library, but I've modified it somewhat. And so basically, you've got your rig here. basically a rig hierarchy with just some simple names of spine joints and neck joints and left shoulder joints, right shoulder joints, and so on and so forth. So that is the rig. And if you just want to see what the rig looks like, it looks like that. Now, when dealing with motion capture, if you're going to retarget something to something else, or if you bring in motion capture data, you'll get a pretty simple rig that looks a lot like this one. And it's sort of like doesn't have a lot of the niceties that advanced rigs have, like, for example, IK handles for the arms and elbow pointers and knee pointers and IK foot handles and all the really interesting and nice things that you need to do hand keyed animation. So that's the kind of rig that this character has. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out by bringing a piece of motion capture in, and we're going to learn basically about how to, if you bring in motion capture, how do you get that motion capture onto your rig? And that's what retargeting is all about. How do you get the motion capture that you bring in to be applied to your own character and your own rig? Before I do that, let's just talk about motion capture for a minute. I believe that I had some different kind of things basically over here. But basically, when what kind of sources can you bring in of motion capture? And you can, for example, do one of several things. You can buy motion capture libraries. For example, you can buy packs, of thematic packs like battle motions or fighting motions or dancing motions, so on and so forth. You can also get a Rococo suit or a motion capture suit, not only manufactured by Rococo, and you can create your own motion capture.
Joe, can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
One of the users is asking, this particular rig you have on your screen,
Yes.
where can they get it from?
So
have you supplied a link in your
we're going to supply this rig to you. We're going to supply this character and this rig to you.
Through the tutorial link?
I've already actually given it to Michelle, so she has it on the tutorial.
Excellent.
Yes.
So, yes. Lee, that's your answer. The rig is going to be provided on the tutorial on Cineversity.
Right.
Sorry for the interruption. Keep going.
No problem. And another thing, like, so for example, there you also have markerless motion capture. I've actually did a lot of work with this company a few years ago. I reviewed their stuff and I created some tutorial videos, and they have a markerless motion capture system. They're called iPieSoft, and where you don't have to even wear a suit. And then there's also, for example, here is actually Rococo's website, and for example, this is the kind of suits that you can get if you want to do motion capture. If you want to capture finger capture, you would get sort of like a glove like this, where you can actually capture finger capture as well. And there's also facial motion capture, which we're not going to talk about, and that can be its own whole tutorial series, I suppose. But something, I don't know, Thanasis, if you saw this in the past few days, that it seems like Rococo has come out with their own 2-camera markerless motion capture solution.
Yeah, so a bit about that, because that's extremely interesting. So a while ago, Rococo introduced a free version that doesn't require the suit to work. And they use, I think, machine learning and all that. And you can just record any video and turn it into...
With one camera, right?
With one camera. And this is the improved version. I think you need to have a subscription to their software, and you use 2 cameras. And it's, I saw Sam's, Sam Lazarus is the person you see in the video with the red hoodie. Right. He's an evangelist and instructor and all around great guy. Yeah. And it appears that the new system they have with the 2 cameras, it's absolutely brilliant. So go on Rococo's YouTube channel or their website and check it out. It's absolutely amazing. At least from what I saw, I was very much impressed.
Yes, absolutely. And the fact that you have 2 cameras, it helps a lot with like occlusion, for example. The more cameras you have, actually in the iPie system, you can actually use up to 6 cameras. But here, here basically you can you have a two-camera solution. So what we'll do is we're going to bring in a piece of motion capture. So let's just go ahead into this file menu. We're going to choose Merge Objects, and we'll do one that was actually, we're going to bring two in, actually. We're going to bring in this one here, which is a piece of motion capture that was recorded with a Rococo suit. So we'll bring that in. And it's an FBX setting. Just actually, let me cancel that for a minute, because if, basically you've got a lot of motion capture these days I'm seeing in FBX files. Before, we would get them a lot in a different format, which were called BVH files. So you might see a lot of motion capture data captured in this format too, BVH. So whether it's BVH or FBX, they both work in Cinema 4D. So we're going to go ahead and bring this one in. And here are the FBX import settings. It doesn't have any geometry or subdivision surfaces. Sometimes you do get geometry, and we'll look at that too. But so we're just going to leave everything default, and we get this. And what comes in is it comes in a rig with motion capture data on it. Now, and you'll notice that the first frame of the motion capture is in this, what is known as a T-pose. And we'll talk about the importance of T-pose. As soon as you go to the second frame, it starts its motion capture. I'm just dragging through it by hand. But you'll see that there's this strange bone that gets drawn from a joint, which is called the reference joint, to the next joint in the hierarchy, which is called the hips. And that kind of looks a little bit weird. So we're just going to take that out of the reference joint so we don't see that anymore. And let's take a look at what this piece of motion capture is. You can see that it's a guy that's kind of running, and he sort of jumps over something. Let's just play that again. So what retargeting is all about is how to take this animation and target it onto our character. So we're going to go over that fundamental skill. But you know what? I wanted to have you notice something, that there's no, finger animation or finger data applied. I mean, built into this mocap, and that's fine. Some mocap will have finger data, some won't. For example, I'll bring in another piece of mocap here right now. Let's say it's under. I think it's this one here that I was going to say. This is just somebody running on a treadmill. Okay, so you can see that in this animation. Okay, you'll notice that some geometry came with it. And, this is kind of spit out by Rococo as sort of a default, geometry. Something's wrong with my mouse. It's stuck. Uh-oh, that's odd. Oh, there it goes.
I can see your mouse.
There we go. So anyway, so if we played this motion capture, you can see that, first of all, it takes an awful long time to get started. But it's just a simple animation of a little run on a treadmill, and then he seems to turn around and walk back, and then I guess he reaches over and turns off the computer. So was probably captured by one person rather than a team. On large motion pictures, you have a whole team of people, on a big stage, but this was probably captured in somebody's gym, little home gym or something like that. So what we're going to do is on this case, we've got the hips over here, and it's in two, joints. So you have that strange bone in the middle. So we'll just pull that out of those, and we're going to get rid of everything else because we're just really interested in the rig there. So now we have the rig there, and in this case, what I wanted to show you is that this case actually does have, fingers were captured, and he must have been wearing a glove. So whether you have the fingers captured or not, it all depends. But you will notice that it also has a T-pose for its first frame. And sometimes you'll have the T-pose on the last frame. So Because one thing that's important is that when we'll see why, you need a reference pose, whether it's the first frame or the last frame. Now, you'll notice that this character is designed in a T pose, okay? Sometimes characters are designed in, like, let's say, an A pose. Well, that's the shoulder. Let me pick up the hand, the arm. Sometimes characters are designed in A pose, and maybe both of these arms would look something like this. Okay, in which case the T pose wouldn't work. You need to have your reference pose on your motion capture. You need to have that in an A pose, or you might have a pose that's completely different. Like you might have, for example, a dinosaur pose where his hands are kind of like, creepy in front. And then if you're capturing dinosaur movement, that needs to be the reference pose. But by far and away, the T pose is the most common reference pose that you have. Now, sometimes you might get motion capture that doesn't have any reference pose in it. It just has straight into the motion. Like, for example, it'll just start with whatever motion you have, in this case, like this motion, right? And in which case, you're in a little sticky situation, because you're going to either have to pose your character into a T pose, or you're going to
address. Yeah, I will address that.
Good.
In my segment. Yes.
Excellent. So anyway, let's go back to basic retargeting. So I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to name these so that they're actually not just all named hips. And I'm going to call this jump over hips. Jump over hips. And you can actually put it in a null too. It doesn't have to, if you want to name it to a null and leave it hips, it's fine. But I'm doing this for a reason. I'm going to call this treadmill hips. And I'm going to call this generic hips, because that's our generic character. Okay. So how do we let's hide the treadmill rig. So how do we get this animation of that character retargeted onto our character? And the way that you do that is by using Cinema 4D's important tag. It's called the character definition tag. And we're going to need it both on our source character, our source mocap, and our target character. Let's do it on the source one first. So we're going to right click it. We're going to go to the rigging tag. So we're going to choose character definition. Okay. And there it is. It's character definition tag.
And I'm gonna expand on the character definition as
Excellent.
to what it does and all that. Yep.
Okay. Good. So we're going to click Open Manager, and we're going to strictly, I think Thanasis is going to talk about this to some extent, but what we're going to do is that there's a sort of, list of bones, and feel free to interject if you want. But over here, and what we need to do is we need to tell this list of stuff to tell what the hips are in the character definition to what the hips are in the rig. So we can just go ahead and we can just drag that stuff in. Okay, so for example, actually we could click on the hips, and we could just drag that stuff in, and we could drag it in for all the spine joints, the spine and the neck and whatever. Okay. Or what we can do is we can just simply say extract skeleton. Okay. And what it does is it goes through and it searches a bunch of strings, and basically it puts it all in automatically. Okay. So that's really cool. So the next thing you need to do is you need to set the reference pose, which is the T pose. So you want to set the reference pose right now because it's in the T pose. You don't want to set the reference pose here because it's not in the T pose. So we leave it on the first frame and we click set reference pose. Now I've been in the situation where you bring in some mocap animation and it doesn't recognize it when you hit extract skeletons, because you'll see these strings here, like for example, for the leg, left leg, the thigh, it's searching for left and up leg. And the thing was named thigh. And for the shin, it's searching for left and leg, and it was called shin over here. So if that happens to you, you need to add the right strings to include. All right, so we've done it. We've actually gone ahead and we've defined the character for this jump over hips, okay? And now we want to do the same thing for our generic hips. So we go ahead, rigging tags, character definition, okay? We're simply going to say extract skeleton. And once again, even though I named my hips generic hips, okay? Oops, actually, okay, I just made a mistake. And the mistake is that this character definition belongs to this object, okay? So it's very important that I'm doing a new one here. So I need to close that, click on this tag and hit Open Manager and get the other one. So if you double click on this, or if you click on this, it doesn't switch the character definition over to the tag. You actually have to close it, click on this, and open its manager. Okay, so now let's try that again. Extract skeleton. Okay, now let's go to the hips. Okay, and now you can see that it found everything, all of these joints for every part of the body into that. So you'll notice that it did not find any. Well, here it actually did in this character. It found all the finger joints. Okay, like the thumb and the index fingers, but it did not find it in this one. And the reason is because there are no fingers on that rig. Okay, so it just ignores it. Okay, and did I set the reference pose? I'm not sure. So let's open this and then say set reference pose. So basically, we've got two character definitions. Let's name them. Let's name this to like jump over rig. Okay, and then we're going to name this to we're going to name this as generic rig. Okay, so two character definitions. And so now, did we do it? Now, does it work? And the answer is no. We haven't retargeted it yet. We still have to do one thing. And what we have to do is we have to click on the character definition tag. And we have to create solver. And that creates another little tag, which you can also get by right-clicking on the hips and choosing character solver here. Okay. And here, there's a little field for the source character and for the target character, okay? And what we're going to do is, all we have to do is drag the source character definition into the source character field. And now, if you notice, I'm going to start dragging through this, and you'll notice that we've retargeted the motion capture onto our character. So I can hide the source rig, and you can see that it's now moving the right way. And that is basic retargeting. Now, there's something else that I want to show you on the treadmill motion capture. This is an hour-long session, right, Thanasis?
Yeah, it's an hour long.
Okay.
Any
Well, we can go
information
over.
any information that's in the tutorial,
Right.
people can watch that as well.
Right. Okay. So what on the treadmill hips, I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to go ahead to the rigging tags, character definition. I'm giving another one. This time I'm going to call this character definition treadmill rig. Okay. Just to keep things straight. And what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to open its manager. I'm going to extract that skeleton. Okay. And you notice here it did extract the fingers, by the way, because there is stuff. And I'm going to set a reference pose. It would help if we could see it. So it's also in the T pose. We're going to set the reference pose. So now the character right now, our character, let's hide this rig. Our character right now is doing the jump over motion capture. Okay, so now all I have to do is I have to click on the character solver and drag in the other definition, okay, the treadmill one. And now he's doing the treadmill action. Let's see. Oh, but it doesn't work. Okay, it's not working. Now, why is it not working? And the reason is, this is what I was telling you before. I just wanted to give you a heads up, is that if we open up the manager here, you'll see that you can see that, or we open up, for example, the legs, we can see that the instead of right up leg, which is on the other rig, we can see that it's called right thigh. And then instead of right leg, it's called right shin. So it's not finding those things. So you would need to then go ahead and either drag them in, or you can change the strings to find thigh. And then it will find it, and then it will define the character precisely. So we're not going to do that now because there's not enough time, but that's what happens in that case if it's not working. Okay, so I'm going to delete that rig. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead back into the character solver, drag back that, and so we're back to this thing. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you here for this week, next week we're going to get into more advanced concepts like the Mixamo control rig, but is that if I were to go ahead and, we have our animation here and it's running. And the thing is that if I were to delete the motion capture rig, okay, our character doesn't move anymore. And the reason is because we're referring, okay, we're referring to that other rig and it's not there anymore. Okay, so what happens if you want that animation to be baked on to your rig, which is this rig here? Okay, what you need to do then is you need to click on the first item in the rig hierarchy. So we'll just click on the hips, and we'll go to the timeline, the dope sheet here, and we'll go ahead, and there it is, generic hips. It's selected. So we make sure it's selected. And we're just going to say bake objects. Okay. So what we're going to do is that it's doing the whole timeline to about frame 500, but it really, the animation stops at 230. So we can just change that to a 230 here. And we don't need to create a copy, and we don't need to clean tracks. And we just need the position and rotation of the joints. Actually, we don't even really need the position of the joints because these joints aren't really moving at all. They're just rotating, and they don't have any animated parameters on them. But if you wanted to bake that into a different kind of rig where the joints actually translate instead of just rotate, you would, or if they scaled, or if there was point level animation, you would also add that. But we'll just leave it at that for now. So we'll click OK. And now we actually can get rid of the motion capture data, and it's baked onto our joints. There's one other thing that I wanted to show you that I don't know, maybe I'll do it after Thanasis. I don't want to cut too much time off of Thanasis' presentation.
What would that be? Maybe
I wanted to show the most basic way to add your own custom animation to this, because we're going to learn a more advanced way today. I can show it real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, so that's how you would do it. And if you're happy with that animation, that's fine. Now, let's say you wanted to add some custom animation to this performance, okay? So let's say you wanted to have him raise his hand and put it back down as he makes his run and before his joint, like if he's doing like a charge or something, okay? So the easiest way, the thing to understand is that every joint has its own keyframe, right? I mean, that's how motion capture works. So you can just go ahead, for example, and you can find the joints for the, let's say for the arms. So for example, for the arm, and you can find, for example, I happen to know it's about from frame 41 to 85, and you can just go ahead and you can select at frame 41, which is right around here, the rotation, and go to about frame, 80, let's say. And you could just, like, for example, delete those keyframes, and you can delete the keyframes for the rotation of the forearm. Let's say we'll delete these keyframes as well. And then we might as well, oops, I wanted that one to be in. It doesn't really matter. And then for example, for the hand, the rotation of the hand, because I might want to animate that as well. And then you can see, oops, you can see that for those frames that you've the hand. Oh, I'm doing actually this hand. Okay, so I thought I was doing the other hand, but so I'm doing the left hand. So it's not animating now. Now I can just sort of go into the center and go ahead. Now I don't have controllers, so and I don't want to make layers right now. So I can just go ahead to the left arm and sort of like, raise that up to here and then keyframe that in the center somewhere. And go ahead to the forearm and keyframe that. It's kind of intersecting with his head. So I'm going to go back to the left arm and I'm going to rotate it out to here and maybe rotate it this way.
And I want to quickly respond while you're showing this.
Yes.
To lookalike dolls, which I'm going to respond to some more of the questions later on. No, this is not the only way. What Joe is showing in this particular case is one of the ways you could, which requires the least amount of knowledge of the tools and just a knowledge on what keyframes are. So this can allow you to just delete the previous keyframes. The same principle even applies if you have a jitter. So if you are in a situation where during your mockup, something jitters, there was some error, you can just delete that one jittery keyframe and it will just tween from the one keyframe to the other, skipping the intermediate one. So this is just one of the methods you could use. It's not the only method, and depending on the case, it may not even be the recommended one.
Exactly what Thanasis said. This is the most basic method. We're actually, when we learn about control rigs, we'll learn a much better method to do this, actually. But the thing is that if you don't have a control rig, if you're dealing with just raw motion capture data, and as Thanasis said, if you want to either add some animation or straighten out some animation, a foot goes through the floor, something like that, you can use this technique. You just find the offending keyframes, and now you've created a little kind of oops, he's going the wrong way here.
And go and show and go and see the Joe's tutorial. So what we're doing these 4 Mondays in September is supplementary. The tutorial has been online for a few days. Go check it out, because Joe goes into a lot of detail, because we can address any further questions if you've watched it. Because if we're answering now questions that are answered in the tutorial, it's going to be less beneficial. So make sure in the following days, go watch the tutorial. It's extremely interesting, and at least next Monday you can come back and ask more questions on what you've seen.
Absolutely. So that's sort of a basic retargeting workflow in Cinema 4D. If you want to just get stuff from the motion capture onto your character, and the most basic techniques if you want to modify the animation. And as we'll be learning more advanced techniques, and we're going to be learning about the motion, the control rig, and we'll also be learning about the motion system in later classes. But Thanasis, would you like to show your stuff now?
I'm stealing the screen. So this question, where is it? Where can we find Joe's tutorials? There's Brittany. There's a link posted above about 15 posts. Let me just the one that says university.rising.net. Let me see if I can repost that. Where is it? Where is it? Joe's new tutorial series. There it is. And if you look up, you can copy and paste the link. And it's on university.maxon.net. So the link is above.
And now, some of the stuff we're covering here in this series like a few things I talked about and the things that the NASA's are going to talk about are not in the series. So best, if you want to get the full picture, watch both.
Indeed, and ask questions. Don't be shy. So let's go and address some of the questions we had. Now, both of them are from Lookalike Dolls. First of all my characters have controllers. But if I use mocap data with my character, I have to delete all controllers. Otherwise, where there are controllers, they are pinned and the character cannot move. That is not quite true. So the character definition allows you to control rigs in two different ways. You can use controllers or you can use joints. And answering your second question alongside this one, that's why the R, the rotation, is enabled by default and not the position, the scale, or the user data, UD. All these parameters can be used depending on what you're doing. Now, let's make a bit of a disclaimer here. When we're talking about mocap, in most cases, if not all cases, we are talking about a forwards kinematic rig. If there's anyone that doesn't know exactly what the difference between forward kinematic and inverse kinematic is, here is the 30-second explanation. If you have two joints, so I'm going to do the simplest possible joint animation. So I'm going to go to the joint tool, press Control, and go boop, boop, boop. There you go. So here's a joint. And what we're trying to do is imagine this joint as being a robot hand. So let me just go and zero out all these. If I right click on the correct things, so there you go, we have this cube here. And this is a robot hand. I want to place this cube on top of this cube. Let me move it out. So go E, move it here, right? So I want to use this rig to place that cube, cube 1, on cube 2. So there are two ways of doing it. One way is to go directly to the rotations and say, I'm going to rotate this, I would say about there. And then I'm going to select this and rotate about there. But then I need to take this and rotate a bit back. There you go. I think that's good enough. And then take this and rotate it like this. And I've got one cube over the other. What you just saw was the exact representation of what forward kinematics is. That means that the rotations are calculated forwards from the root in order for the end of the chain to reach a particular position. That's why it's called forwards, because the motion is calculated forwards. Rotation, that affects this rotation, that affects this rotation, that affects the final position. That's one of the things you need to get your heads around. We're using rotations to define positions, all right? Because these are rigid things, the joints. Let's undo, and let's see what the equivalent for inverse kinematics is. But inverse kinematics, which we need to set, so right-click, rigging, IK, give it the end, which is this, and I think that's all. We can add a goal, and we're going to use this goal. In forward kinematics, what you do, you use the position to define the rotations. And you go here, do the position. You can go to 3 axes, but you understand what I'm trying to say here. Because the kinematics, the rotations are calculated in reverse order. So you find the final position, you know the lengths, and then you have to calculate what the motion, what the rotation of the joints is going to be in order to find the final position. Because although we're moving a position, which is our goal, it's actually calculating rotations in order to do that. And it's inverse because it goes backwards. Now that we know what IK, and it wasn't 30 seconds, it was mostly 3 minutes. So because mocap calculates only rotations, it's strictly forward kinematic. So if your rig is set up in inverse kinematics, and the answer is for lookalike dolls, if your rig is set in inverse kinematic, then of course you won't have that alignment. You need to make sure that you go to your rig over here, your little IK tag, and don't not set it to IK, the left, set it to FK, right? Because IK is going to use the controllers, whereas FK is going to use the rotations, and you can go here and rotate this any way you want. So make sure that the rig you make is set to FK in order to read the rotational data. So I hope that that answered your both your questions. So let me see. I answered the one about a custom animation. Yes, there are ways to do that. Joe's tutorials, can the baked keyframes be converted to smooth curves for editing in the F curve graph? Well, we do have some sort of simplify if you go to the timeline. To what extent it's going to provide you with the data you want exactly? I don't remember. Do you remember where it is? It's a
Yeah.
simplify. Key reducer. I think it's a key reducer or something like that,
Let me see.
or simplify. The one down here. I don't have any animation here.
Yeah, it'll smooth it out. It'll smooth it out, and it will give you sort of like more of a Bezier thing.
Yeah,
Hopefully, your motion capture won't be too jittery. Then it's probably bad motion capture, But
but to be honest, though, we don't have some sort of tool that will do that, because the question is, can I get the perfect F curves? And the answer is no. You will get an approximation, and then you're going to go and do various, manual stuff. As far as I know, we don't have an algorithm that does that.
right when
Um,
you're going to deal with the control rig next time, where you put a rig over your mocap rig, you can actually, that doesn't have any keyframes in it, and you can create your own F curves on that. Completely smooth F curves, and it gives you IK handles and everything.
oh
Like I said,
yes,
we're going to talk about that next time, and that might be also an important solution to that.
yep. And this was the question: can we baked frames be converted to smooth curves and so forth? The answer is you could, but you're not going to be satisfied with the result. So that is one thing. So can we add a face rig to this structure as well? You could. There's no. You can add whatever you want. You can add separate rigs. You can take one rig and another rig and place it. You can take these two and take. So I've got two rigs now, right? And I want to place this rig, and let's make them both inverse kinematic because why not? I want to place the second one at the tip of the first one. So you can either do it by doing the hierarchy, or you can just go here and put a constraint tag. Let's get a constraint. Let's set it to transform, which is a position, scale, and rotation. Let's get, where do you want to put it? The goal or the cube or joint two. I'm going to put joint two because why not? Now we have these two rigs that work together. There's no, you can string them together in
Yeah.
any meaningful way.
You can also
Rigs
use
are,
constraint tags to make, use parenting constraints.
yes, or yeah, or parenting or the constraint. So you can delete this and just take this and put it here and just zero
Oh,
it
right,
out.
right. Oh, I
Do
thought
some,
that's what you did first.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go, one and two. So what I want to stress is that rigging is an extremely simple, has extremely simple fundamentals. You put things in hierarchies where if you move the parent, the child moves with it. That's a general principle. That's it. That's it. And everything moves from its axis, its own axes. What is the hard part is number one, making them work in a certain way, creating an interface, creating all sorts of interesting things, making a UI that you can control your rig. So I made this monstrosity here. How would I want it to work? I can always go like that and sort of move things. Maybe I don't want this to move when I move this, right? You can see the end goal is moving because it's a child. You take it out. So now when I move this one, that is going to remain in place, right? This remains in place. So, and that's just moving it out of the hierarchy. Once you understand these little principles, you can start making very complex things. I mean, I kind of like this. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but I sort of like this. It's some guy holding the bus handle and holding on the chair and being bobbed around by the bus, right? This is what
Yeah.
you're going to do. Whereas this one here, the previous one would be something different. It will be, I don't know, something else. And this little difference is the difference the different setup you would use in order to control a rig one way or another way. So let's go down the questions and see.
Can I
Hello.
interject one thing,
Yes,
if you don't mind?
please.
I wanted to say that, like, on the character definition, and Thanasis mentioned the controller thing over here, is that, like, let's say you have a different kind of rig, not a motion capture rig, but like a really complex rig with controllers and everything like that, and you've hand keyframed, a, a, a sequence that you really liked with IK and all kinds of stuff like that. You could define that character in this, and you can, with the controllers and the joints and everything like that, and then you could apply that to another character with a similar rig, by putting stuff in the controllers, and it can have IK and stuff like that, as well as and he mentioned just rotation, but you can put position. Like, for example, let's say it's not even a character. Let's say it's a mechanical contraption. You can put, position, and then as well as user data. Okay, so if there's user data and Espresso controlling some of the motions, you could put that in there as well, and then put the name of the user data or the ID of the user data. So it doesn't have to just be even all mocap.
Yeah, that's the thing with the character definition. We're not going to touch, maybe towards the end of the series, the end of the month, we may do some user data and all that. I can't promise anything. But the character definition has a lot of functionality. You can tweak the values. I'm going to give you an overview in a second. Now, here's what I was setting up while Joe was speaking was, watch this. So this doesn't have an IK rig. So it's a pure forward kinematic thing. The only thing I'm going to do is take this joint goal and put it here. And now my forward kinematic rig is controlling the inverse kinematic rig. Now imagine if you string 5 or 6 of these together. It's all a matter of understanding how hierarchies work at the end of the day. So there's no shortage. And the example would be, you can take a mocap animation. I've got a bunch here, which I'm going to show in a while. You can take a bunch. You can take a mocap setup, and you can put at the tips of the arms controllers, and without making the whole character animate, you can actually just move the forward kinematic controllers using the inverse kinematic controllers using a forward kinematic rig. You won't have control over the elbows and stuff like that. But if the final position of your arms, for example, or your feet are required, you can do that. There's no, again, what you can do with a hierarchy, this is just a glorified and more complex version of the hierarchy. So let's talk about the character definition. I'm going to check quickly. IK. So lookalike, is it possible to switch from FK to IK even if you rig it manually? I don't understand exactly the question. If you created your IK using the tools here, you can switch from IK to FK. Right? Yeah. That's not a problem, unless the question means something else, which I didn't understand. Blood Ratcher says yes. Yep. So for the future, I wish to understand the concept of fan joint. And
if I could just say something about that.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw my rigging series, but if you did, I go into how to set up a fan joint, actually pretty in depth. So
yep,
you could watch that.
Excellent. So the information exists, and it's in your. If you can go to the private chat, your screen is not shared, so you can go to the general chat and post a link to that, if you may, Joe. If you have a link.
Oh, okay. The thing is that when I click join the chat, when I click join the chat, it says link it to your YouTube account. I don't know what's happening there.
Oh, okay. Do you have any of the chats here? Do you have the
private chat? I see the chat. I just can't seem to enter.
Okay, go to the private chat.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll receive it. And
I see. Okay, very good.
Excellent. Yeah. So let's continue. Let's talk about the character definition, right? Because it does seem more complex than it is. And in order to do this, I've created these rather different rigs here, right? You can see that on the side, joint goes there. This is joint rig. And the other one is just cubes, cubes with the axes moved, right? Editable cubes, and I've moved the axes. And what I'm going to try and do here is I'm taking this, which would be my motion capture rig, and I want to map this motion to another object. And that has identical or similar hierarchies. They have to have some similarity. Otherwise, if you have a two different people and you map the elbow to someone's neck, obviously there are going to be issues. So try to have your rigs at least similar. I'm going to show you with the Cascador Vitas Raukis. Oh, there you are. Kindly sent me a Cascador rig, which I've used in the file I'm going to show you in a bit. So let's do a quick explanation of what the character definition does. So first of all, when you open a new character definition, I'm going to create a null and just go to the rigging tags and say character definition, right? And you open the manager. It's going to open another manager for that, and it will use the name of the tag. So if you always make sure that you name this. I'm going to call this whatever, right? So at least you get the name here. What you see here is not something really standardized. This is just a preset number of, I would say, similar to the Mixamo rig or Cinema 4D standard rig layout, where the torso contains the hips, spine, neck, and head, the torso group. The left arm contains clavicle, bicep, forearm, and so forth. You don't have to use this, and you can save your own presets and create your own presets. So you can remove all this stuff. And basically what we are going to do with this particular case is we are going to create from scratch over here a rig that resembles an outline in hierarchical form that represents what we have here. So I'm not going to save over this. I'm just going to go to this one, which I've already have opened the so-called source, and I'm going to delete everything, right? I'm going to delete everything. So remove all. And I'm going to remove all from here, and I'm going to remove this. So now there's no correlation between one and the other. I'm going to go over here and remove all. There you go. So there's nothing. And what is the structure here? Okay, add body part. So we have the base. It takes the first one, names it here. What is under the base? It's something called the middle. And I'm going to call it me. It doesn't even need to be the same name. I'm just copying the hierarchical structure here. And when I'm done with this, I'm going to explain what it's trying to do. Then under that, we have three joins. So we go here and we say add body part, and add body part, and take these three and make them children of that. And this will be a L for arm left, a R for arm right, and T for top. And what's under the arm length? There's just an arm one, so go to arm length, put the body part there, call it 1. Go to this one, add a body part, put it in here. It doesn't create the hierarchy automatically. Arm right 2, 2. Right, you can see all the hierarchies here. And the T top has the tip. So add body part and put it under T and name it tip. And then tiny, add body part, teeny and tiny. There you go. And just keep the same hierarchy. So tiny. I ran out of names, so I apologize. Cool. And basically what we need to do to create a preset is because this preset hierarchy, this can be a centipede. If you can do this, I don't know, 100 times. It could be a spider, and you can have the antlers, you can have the legs, you can have all sorts of body parts. So it doesn't matter what you're making, as long as it subscribes to any kind of hierarchy. So challenge number 1, let's create a hierarchy here where things are nested in the same way they're nested over here. Now, what I haven't tried is if I take all this and drag it in here, it doesn't work. I would have loved that to happen. Now, before we do anything else, we need to tell this, for this particular rig that we're doing here, which of these hierarchical elements relates to which of these hierarchical elements. And the best way to do that is use naming. using this strings to include and strings to exclude, because most rigs have proper naming. You can always go and drag the various joints in here and just do that. But then you want to go and map it. You can see here in this rig, I've added the same name. So base, base, but I've underscore geometry, middle, middle, arm, arm, and all that. This mapping is good to have because it's very difficult for the software, especially if the things are in different places, if your hierarchy is reversed or something like that, to find exactly which one. So naming is an easy way to do that. And you can use the naming tool for anyone that doesn't know, Shift C to bring up the commander type naming. And the naming tool, you can dock it somewhere here. You can add prefixes, suffixes, you can replace parts. So you can go and name battery name objects. So it's very, very handy. So um, I want um, I want to find a way to have a same mapping. So as far as the base is concerned, it knows it's the base, right? And it added automatically a string called base. This could be called noseman. As long as it has a string noseman here, it's going to read it. For the MI, it's looking for a string that's middle or MI. Just make sure you don't have overlaps. So the string it's going to look for is MI. Then I'm just copying and pasting the names. For arm left, it's arm L. For arm one, it's O1 because O1 is the unique string about that. Arm right is, and you need to spend some time to do this. This is O2. Then we have top, so top, then tip, if I'm not mistaken, and then tiny. And it's tiny. There you go. We have the mapping. Now, watch what happens.
And let me just say one thing. There's also strings to exclude. And you might want to
Yes.
use that, for example, like if there's a left arm and left forearm, if you don't put forearm under strings to exclude, it will find left forearm when it's looking for left arm. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. It's simple. So you need to understand a bit of programmatic logic here. Okay. If you have two things, arm left and arm 01, what's going to happen here is this one is going to find arm. So I need to go here and exclude arm from this one and exclude arm from this one. So it only reads the O1 and O2. Oh, actually, not this one. Let me see if I'm doing some sort of terrible mistake here. O1, O2. Okay. This is going to read arm left. This is going to read arm right. This is going to read O1. So
Right.
you
Should
don't
be all
need
right.
this.
You
In
should
this
be all
particular
right.
case, we don't need this.
Yeah.
But if you do have names, as Joe suggested, that are contained in many of these, you filter them out, and you can use or statements. If the name is
Yeah.
O2 or O3, read it here. Or if it's O2 and
Right.
O3, and you can do it with commas as well. I want to find all the objects in that hierarchy that have the name O2 um, or noseman or arm, or so you can add all these and it will find all the objects depending on what you're doing. I'm going to show you how I did it for the Cascadeur rig. What should happen here is that now, first of all, I can save a preset for this if I wish to do so. So I'm going to save a preset here. I'm going to call it 11111 because I'm going to go and delete it later on, just so I can save the preset sets this saves this hierarchy, so you don't have to do it again. And I'm going to do extract skeleton, and immediately uses these strings here to find the appropriate objects here. And it's not only joints; it's the objects that it's looking for. And it's going to populate each one of these. And it says it found 9 joints. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Correct. So now what this has done is that it took this and it mapped everything based on that string search to connect this hierarchy with this hierarchy here. Now, they need to be similar, as I said. The other things is we get the set reference pose now. And here is where you set the pose in which the mapping occurred, set reference pose. And we will find it later on when we want to reset it. Because if you're animating and you want to fix things, you want to go to the T pose and do that, or whatever the reference pose. It could be an A pose, it can be a T pose, it can be a T pose with bent elbows, it can be a T pose with straight elbows. A T pose is not always a T pose, unfortunately. These are things you need to consider. The other thing is, it's good practice, and I'm mentioning it here, that everything is in the T pose, and their face is whatever is called front, facing in the minus Z. So the plus Z faces towards the back. This is the plus Z. That's why the arrow points this way. So facing us when we're looking at them would be the minus Z. Now you can always do that even if both your rigs, the target and the source, are facing in another direction, but it will potentially mess up your rotations. The algorithms that I used when we're going to use the character solver in combination with our definitions, the best practice is that we do that when they're facing forwards. So we go to this now and we say, okay, what do we have here? Let's go to the root and add another character definition. This is going to be called cubes. Open the manager. Now it brings back this default thingy-madoodle. So let's remove all, and let's go and load that preset 111. So it loads what you already finished and extract skeleton. And it finds not 9, but 6. And the reason is, in order to have a joint at the tips, you need that extra joint. With cubes, I don't really care about that. So we have 1, 2, 3, the 3 tips. We don't have them because this joint here, the arm, is a null, actually, a glorified null, which resides here. And the arm 2 is just an extra null that shows the distance.
So the cubes is just a hierarchy of cubes with no bones in them at all. And did you move the pivots? I mean, did you move the origins to the tips where the joints?
Yes, I did. So the origins of each cube lie at the base of each cube, just to make it look better. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I've defined that this is one. I've recorded the main pose and I've recorded the hierarchy in my definition. I've done the same thing for this, and they're facing forwards. They have a similar pose, but this one is, it's got a longer neck, a shorter torso, and the belly is smaller. But the pose is similar. This is what we call a similar pose. So now I'm going to go here. I'm going to say rigging tags, and let's put a character solver. And the character solver, it takes the target, it knows it has one here. If it doesn't, you just drag this in here. And this is a source over here. And if I start rotating these now, you will see that they map to the other one. Although the rotations can be totally different. That's why they're required to point in the same direction. The math actually is quite complicated when you want to map totally different directions. But what it does when you add this is it compares the rotations of the source and target rig and creates a rotation delta, given the forward facing is the minus Z, and which is a reference point. You always, when we're doing rotations, you always need a standard reference point, and that is pointing in the minus.
That's
Z.
why this whole character definition thing is much improved than the old retarget tag, which had the joints actually needed to be aligned the same way for it to work. But here the joints can have different alignment.
And let me see if I'm going to break it or if it's going to work. So I'm going to revert to saved, which is my saved version here, which works, right? It works. It's got this. And there's a bit of a lag. When I undo, just click outside it, and it's going to go there. Maxon is aware of that, and they're working for a fix. So what I'm going to do now is I want to change the pose, right? Which is one of the challenges we always have. So, my character's fingers were pointing upwards and they need to point downwards. There are a couple of things you need to do. You need to go to your solver tag, wherever your definition is applied, so source or target. You need to go to the basic and deactivate it. Because upon activation, it does that checking for the rotation deltas. Delta in fancy speak means differences, right? Delta,
Greek.
Yeah, delta, which is the little triangle, which is what D was based on in diaforan, which means difference. So delta is difference. I'm going to answer questions in a bit. So You turn it off, and let's go to the arm here and sort of rotate it. Wonk, and go to the other arm and rotate it the other way. Wonk. So let's see what happens if we go back to a character solver and enable it. It brings it back. So what I'm going to do here is go to the reference pose. Right, that's a reference pose. Let's go and deactivate it. And let's go back to this and do this rotation and this rotation. And let's go here and set reference pose because I need to record this reference. It is my understanding that they won't rotate now. You can see I turned it on and they didn't rotate. But if I do this, they still work correctly. So although I went and I changed the rotations of this, following the recipe of resetting the reference pose and turning this off while doing so, we're actually able to change the rigging of the target character and do correction and fixes. And the same thing for the source as well when you want to change things. So that is the recipe. And if you want to rewatch it again, you can rewatch it. Now, let me check some questions. That's fine. No one's writing question, and I can't see what's a question. So where was I? I get FK. Let's see. Hello. Just suggestion for the future. I wish to understand the concept of fan joint. Yep, we discussed this. Why the joint moved when you switch from FK to IK? Yeah, because so this is the question. It moved because when I switch from IK, which is the rotations are forced on the joints using a target object. If you go to FK, then that force does not happen. So the rotations don't exist, are in the original position. That's why that happens. My switching from IK to FK vice versa calls the rig to move, exactly. I input mockup data, which phone booking, all right. When I import mockup data, which phone baking bones from Blender or Maya, how can I transfer mockup data to standard character? This is the whole tutorial that Joe, if you watch his tutorial and you just take the rotations, you do what we're doing here with the character definition, basically. If your question is different than how I understood it, ask a question. You can always DM me on Twitter @NosemanGR.
The basic thing is you use the character definitions in the character solver, and you make sure that you've defined the characters correctly.
I'm putting my @NosemanGR there. That's me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And let's see what else. I just wonder why such simple things can't be found on the internet. They can. It's called the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. And all your questions have a potential of becoming tutorials or series. So keep asking them. Ask the questions. It says one day making motion capture with just a video to Cinema 4D. Yeah, go to Rococo. And they have a free version using one camera and a paid version which uses two cameras. If you go back on the stream, if you're watching it on a rewind, you'll see that
there are several solutions like that out there.
Solutions. You are the happiest person. So Guillaume challenge is the happiest person. I answered the question. Okay, now let's take a quick overview. We've already 15 minutes over. And what I'm going to show you is the result of what I showed you earlier. And what I have here is a cascadeur rig. So the animation for this fella here has come from another software. It's the cascadeur rig. And what I did, I created my own definition here, my own definition. But I based this definition on our own Cinema 4D Mixamo rig, the one that's close to what's globally used. And I used that standard one. I didn't create my own because I want the cascadeur rig to map to what we have in Cinema 4D. What you will see in the cascadeur rig is that the joints have different names. So let's see where's my Where's my Roomba? There we go, Roomba. So this is a standard Mixamo rig. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop out an attribute manager and put it on Cascadeur T-pose. So it's close everything else. This one here. So this is the Cascadeur. And this is I'm going to pop out another one and go and find my Roomba. Whee! So close this and find my Roomba. And let's go and compare these rigs next to each other. Right, let me make this a bit smaller and compare these rigs. So you can see that we have very different names comparing this to this. Pelvis is hips. Zero joint pelvis R, something like this. Zero joint pelvis L, stomach. There's no stomach to be found here. So what you need to do is you need to look at your rigs. So let me turn off the geometry for this guy. And this is our standard Mixamo rig, and this is the standard Cascadeur rig. So when you are using the character definition to map a different rig that's coming from somewhere else and doesn't have the same naming, you just need to go and define the names that you require for this to work. So in the particular case of the Cascadeur animation rig over here, what I've done, and I've saved this as a preset, and if you wish, I can post a link on Twitter for this file because everything is contained. It's and I've got permission to share the model by Vitas. Just make sure you let me know that this is not a model that came from somewhere else. It's the standard Cascadeur rig. Otherwise, I'm going to just delete the geometry or something. So for the torso, what we call the torso in our language, or the hips, is the pelvis. For the spine is the stomach and the chest. And it's not one, it's two joints now because they both move together. And you can go here and start going through the stomach, and you see, what is a stomach? The stomach is the one that's just above this little one. So let's go and find this. If you want to find the names, you just go, oh, this is a stomach. Great. Control right click. Control right click. There you go. And it will give you a little flyout menu of what's underneath. Control double click, right click, right? It's a double right click. Hips bind. So it's the hips basically that are behind there instead of what we call let's find this, a bit finicky with the extended double click, stomach. So this is called the stomach. This is called hips bind. So you create these this naming mapping by just making sure that it selects the correct joints. And you go up the hierarchy and you just find, so the clavicle here is the zero joint hand. Although there is a clavicle, this is what took me the most time to figure out, that this is the pelvis and this is the stomach and zero joint hand, and there's a clavicle after that. So if you just reading, oh, there's a clavicle here and there's a clavicle in the Mixamo rig and just put clavicle here, it would not work. And I had some trouble doing that. You need to make sure that the joint you are mapping to another joint is the correct one, because the name for this could be supercalifragilisticexpialidocious for what I'm concerned. Don't go just by names.
Why did they put a clavicle joint there?
Oh, let me call them and ask them. What kind of question is that, Joe? I don't know. But I think it's because they have their clavicle bone separate, which is controlled by the arm. Whereas here, the clavicle bone is what connects the chest to the shoulder. But here, that is called zero joint hand, right? So they've got some different concepts. And all you have to do is just find these. You need to spend some time, but you have to do it only once. And then you can save this as a preset. And now you have a bidirectional definition of an object, of a hierarchy that maps between our Mixamo rig or our standard Cinema 4D rig and the Cascadeur rig. And that is what I find very interesting with this. You create the mapping once and it works in both ways. That's the great thing.
Excellent.
about it. And in this particular case, what I'm doing here is this is the standard Mixamo Roomba dance. And this is the object that has the animation, the mocap. And I'm feeding that to this character here using, and if you want to select something and find it here, just go here, press S. And this is the geometry. And I'm going to go right click, chest, press S. There it is. So I'm feeding that data. I've got the definition using the character solver. So it's this Cascadeur female rig is using the definitions from Roomba and the Cascadeur rig and mapping the mocap from this onto the Cascadeur rig. And at the same time, I'm using it on Cinema 4D standard rig. So you can exchange these just by using a different definition, right? So the Cascadeur rig is using the Cascadeur definition with all my weird naming and the clavicle, which is not a clavicle, and all that. Whereas our character here, this guy here, so right click, let's go here, press S, is using the standard Cinema 4D definition where the clavicle is a clavicle, left and shoulder. Oh, okay. Oh, it says left and shoulder, but this is the standard Cinema 4D. It comes with a puppet. If you open the puppet rig, it has the definition already there. But because the mapping maps this directly to the Mixamo, and the Mixamo now is mapped to this, I can feed the same mocap data to two characters doing the same thing, although this character and this character are different. And the great thing about this is that you use a single source of mocap, and you can give it, you can target different rigs to do the same thing. Here I've done the opposite, which would be the requirement in the case of Cascadeur. Cascadeur has the ability to add some physics in your simulation, like the bounces, the secondary bounces and all that. And you don't have to deal with those. It does them automatically. And here, using the same character definition, I'm reading the hierarchy from this, and I'm providing it to this character, which is the same as this, and our puppet, which is the standard puppet. And this is the crux of it. This is the baseline with all this stuff, that you can have multiple sources of motion capture. You can go to Mixamo and download whatever you want to download. You can use Cinema 4D's mocap here. We have tons of motion capture. Go to motion capture, open this up, and it has the puppet, and then it has all sorts of things. And you can mix these by using all the information you'll find on Joe's series. And again, this is the great thing, that you're not limited to what character you have. You can even make a bodiless, just to, remember, what was it, the film with the, oh, come on, with a hand, Wednesday, and what's it based on? It's based on the
hand.
Yeah, the hand that walks. Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
That was based on, oh, what is that film called? I always forget. With a weird, scary people and Uncle Dracula and all that. Anyway.
The Addams Family.
The Addams Family. Yay! It just didn't do the connection. So right. You can actually use any product to create animation for hand, and then just use it here. It doesn't need to be a biped, a human. You can record the motion for 2 or 3 humans and create a beast that, let's say a centaur. You can create 2 motion captures. You can use your fingers to create the horse galloping using Rococo gloves. Then you can capture your upper body doing whatever a centaur does, and then you can put them in a centaur rig and just create a character definition. And from that point onwards, you're going to use your fingers to do the galloping or whatever funny motion you want.
Yeah, that's why this character definition stuff is so powerful.
Yes, it is. It is very powerful. You need to start from the basics, and the basic is watch Joe's tutorial. There's a whole series on character rigging in general, if you want to get into that, done by the excellent Joe again. It was another Demystifying post-production. with you were the Ellie Wade, weren't you?
Yes.
Yes, with Ellie.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of information. If you go to the old, so by the way, in case you missed it, the old Cineversity, the cineversity.com, there are some fantastic old tutorials. Now, the interface is going to be a bit different, but as far as the information provided to you, most of the tools, if not all, are relevant. And we've had some exceptionally good trainers in the past, Kai Peterson, Brett Bays, Orestes Transnides. And anyway, just go and search for character. There are
I
tons of.
sent you in the private chat. I sent you the link to part one, by the way.
Let's do that. So I'm gonna copy the link and I'm gonna go and paste it in the comments. So I'm pasting the YouTube. You've got the timestamp as well.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, 5601.
Oh,
All right,
well,
let me
maybe you
paste
should
it
take
without.
that out.
Let me take it without timestamp, and T equals. You just remove the and after that. So there you go.
Okay.
So there is information on the whole discipline. There's a lot of information about the discipline of character animation, but we will add more. We do need you to ask questions. That's imperative because then we understand what your specific problems are to address them. So feel free. My DMs are open, and make sure you supply a simplified scene that exhibits the problem or you want to solve. If you have scenes under NDA and all that, then you have some work to do. You need to simplify the scene or replace the stuff that can't be shared with a simplified model you made and all that. Don't share copyright information. Although nothing ever leaves my computer, and after the problem is solved, it usually goes into the bin. But for your own peace of mind and all that, just don't send that kind of stuff. So what else? Do we have anything else? We're half an hour over, keeping with our tradition. We're not going to keep you anymore because it's Labor Day in North America, and the only people that are laboring on Labor Day is me, Joe, and a handful of other people. So yeah, barring any other questions, quick way to let's do this. What I haven't read the question, so we need a quick way to change a reference pose from A to T. Setting reference pose after adjusting doesn't seem to drill down to the pose morphs. Pose morphs? Are we talking about pose morphs, or are we talking about this particular the character definition and all that? Because with character definition, and I've got something ready for you, you can change the reference pose, and I'll show you what the way is. Let me get rid of my disk and this down here. So let's assume, in case this is what you were asking for, let's assume that I go back to my reference pose here. Oh, and I need to talk about the T pose, so I'm going to touch on that later on. Let's assume that I want to adjust the reference pose for my for this character.
Are you trying
Don't
to
forget,
share your screen? Because I don't think you're sharing your screen.
I'm not sharing my screen, and thank you very much for informing me, Joe. I do this when I'm producing. It's a common occurrence. So it's just the scene I had earlier, and I've got a select object, and double click on this. I'm going to select all the character solver tags, and you go to basic and you disable them. When you disable them, if I enable them and go here, you see I cannot set a reference pose. But if I select them all the ones that are referring to this particular definition, then disable it and then go to your character definition, and you can change the reference pose to the pose morph meshes. So as soon as the morph weight is set, it reverses. I don't understand. Yeah, you may be more well versed than I am. This is a good opportunity to send me a simplified rig, just a couple of cubes,
Also,
weights.
when you say we need a quick way to change a reference pose from an A to a T, are you talking about on the mocap or on your character?
Anyway, let me talk about A and T poses for a second. And what about resetting it? Well, in this particular case, I got a separate A pose and T pose for the Cascadeur rig. So I was sent a male T pose over here, and I was sent a male jump animation. Now, the jump animation didn't have a T pose. So what I did in this particular case, I went all, let's remove this and just go to the armature so we don't have issues. So what I did, I went personally to the timeline, and I went over here. I moved all my animation a few keyframes. I'm going to put it one or two keyframes to the left, to the right. Okay, and let's expand this to 150 just so we have the bandwidth here. And then I went to the male pose. Here's my armature. Copy it. Let's go here. Paste it. There it is. So we have a T pose here for rotations. And you need to make sure that the hierarchies are exactly the same, right? Don't initially I was sent a female T pose which had some slight differences. This is not going to work. So you can see that the T pose has one frame, which is the original keyframe, right? You can always go and add those rotational keyframes. And you need to select everything. You need to select all the keyframes for that particular animated object. You can see if we select the parent one, it's going to select everything down the line. And you just copy it from here, go here, and you go and you paste it. You go here and you paste it. So now I should have, let's get rid of this is the T-pose. And now I copied and pasted it from one to the other. So now I have my animation, but at frame one, I have my T-pose. Right? There's a bit of a twisty wisty going on there. I don't know what that is, but that's like a Greek dance tap. Like, right. I digress. What you shouldn't do, and this is one of the things which you need to be very careful with that. If you have a character here, let's go and delete all the keyframes here. Select all and delete them. So I deleted all the keyframes. You may assume that if you just go and zero out all your rotations, that things are going to be fixed, but that's not the case. Some of the rigs do not, I mean, look at that. That's not very good looking, right? So doing just zero out the rotations won't actually yield that. You do need a reference. The other way to do this, and I'm going to go and remove all the keyframes from here. So I'm just brushing down here. The other thing you could do is just very slowly, just select each one. It's good to start from maybe the legs, and just straighten it out a bit and find that. It's going to take you a bit of time, but you don't have many options. If you don't have a T-pose, you will have to go and fix it. And talking about fixing it, there is something. There are differences. For example, the standard Mixamo rig has straight elbows, straight digits, mostly straight knees. Whereas the T-pose for the Cascadeur rig, you can see it has bent elbows, slightly open legs, a bit more bent in the knee. So if you do have a T-pose and you want to align it to a Mixamo T-pose, make sure that you do those little adjustments, because then he'll run as if he's, pooped his pants or something. His legs are going to be a bit more open or something like that. Doesn't look very elegant for a ninja or something, whatever, ninja or something like that. So make sure you do those adjustments and you have your A poses or T poses as close as possible. What else I have to say? T pose. Yeah, so don't just remove all the rotations. So let's see if there are a few more questions. Yeah, guys on the screen. I think I got the screen back. West C, send me something so we can discuss it at NosemanGR. DM me. Noseman, I've sent you fantastic things to see what I'm talking about. Excellent. Good. So I think we're done for the day. We are 35 minutes approaching overrun. I hope you learned at least one thing. That's the objective for each hour you watch. So you need to learn 1.5 things in this session, because one thing you invest an hour in will save you 10 hours of work. So in terms of return on investment, learning and learning something is pretty much the highest value you can get for your time. And I hope we make it entertaining enough so even if you don't learn anything, at least you have fun. Being in good spirits and having fun is very important as well. So quickly, let's close this off by, let me bring up my things go do a housekeeping showdown. And I just removed myself from here. Let's do that. So Max on Events, go here, go to Max on Events. Max on Training Team YouTube channel. Max on YouTube channel. Pixelogic, ZBrush YouTube channel. Athanasios Posantis, noseman.org is my website. YouTube /@noseman. That's where you find me. But there's another channel, Noseman, which is my old one, and there's nothing really of value there. So by name or
Oops.
Noseman. What happened?
Oh no, nothing. I actually my system sound isn't done because I was opening my channel actually. It's
yeah, your
and-
system sound is off. Go watch Joe's series. It was posted last week, and find the answers to all the mocap and retargeting questions, and come up with questions. We need your questions. Without your questions, we do not have a job. Yeah. So go to the Old University. Amazing stuff, especially this guy, Athanasios Posantis. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's because I'm logged in. It's showing most of the stuff I've done. Excellent. If you want to become a Maxon certified, and I said Maxified, right? If you want to become a Maxified pro user, go to the certifications page. If you look for Maxon and certifications, it will bring you to this page anyway. Ask the trainer, Cinema 4D workflows, all caps, one word, to get your t-shirt for the month of September. You pay for postage and packing and plastic bags and whatever they put in there. So there we go. And where's Joe? Oh, there he is.
Here I am.
So it was a pleasure having you, everyone, in our session. I understand that on a Labor Day weekend or evening, if you're in Europe, we appreciate the fact that you are here with us. And yeah, please ask your questions. Joe, you can say your goodbyes.
I want to say thanks also for everybody to coming. Thanks for that enlightening demonstration, Thanasis, about the character definitions. And thanks, Wes, for the kind comment, and everybody else. And see you next time, where we're going to continue on for some more techniques in motion capture and Cinema 4D.
Will do. Take care, everyone.
See you later.
Bye-bye.